So I'm with Rick Evans, a timber appraiser with the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration. And we've asked Rick to join us because we're in a climate today, as we all know, historically high prices, historically low inventory, historically low affordability. So the idea of harvesting timber on land has become an attractive alternative for people. But it is important that everyone knows what the costs and benefits of that may be. So thank you for joining us, Rick, and let us know what we should know.
Sure. So in New Hampshire, we have a rather unique system. We have a timber yield tax. It's 10% of the stumpage value of the timber once it's harvested. Standing timber in New Hampshire is not assessed and not taxed as part of the general property tax bill. It was prior to 1942, and then in 1949, the timber yield tax was passed and enacted. So from that point on, any timber that's cut in the state requires an intent to cut. The intent to cut is a tax document. It's a notification to the municipality, notifying them that the owner of the land intends to cut timber and generate timber tax revenue for the municipality. There are exemptions. An owner can exempt up to 15,000 board feet of logs and 30 cords of firewood each year for their own personal use, with the provision that that wood needs to be used by the landowner in New Hampshire. It cannot be sold, traded, or given away. A landowner can also exempt up to 15,000 board feet and 30 cords and 300 tons of whole tree chips for a land conversion project. So if someone bought 10 acres of land and wanted to clear 2 acres to build a house, it would most likely be exempt. The volumes from that 2 acres would fall under those volume limits. So to put it in perspective, 300 tons of chips is essentially 10 of those chip vans that you see going up and down the road to a biomass facility that is used to generate electricity. 15,000 board feet of logs is 2 truckloads of logs, 30 cords of firewood, 2.5 truckloads of wood for that. The third exemption are any trees that are within striking distance of a permanent structure, a house, a barn, any permanently maintained building, a roadway, power lines, septic system, driveway, any taxable structure, any tree that's within striking distance of that is exempt from the process. One thing that landowners should be aware of is if they're cutting timber that does not meet one of the exemptions, and it's let's say a reasonably sized cut, something 10 acres or more, they should be getting paid for that timber. What they're paid is the stumpage value, and that's the basis for determining the 10% timber tax on the back end. Once the timber harvest has been completed, the landowner and logger jointly file a report of timber cut, which lists the actual volumes of wood harvested based on the scale slips from the mills. The logger signs one side, the owner signs the other side. All the mills where the products were sold is listed on it. One copy to the municipality, one to DRA, and that's the basis for determining the amount of the timber tax bill.
When you say it's a unique situation in New Hampshire, how so? What are ways that it's done in other states?
Sure. So the last count, there are only 10 or 11 states that do have a timber yield tax. Many states don't tax the timber when it's harvested, but they tax it in other ways. They might tax it as part of an income tax or part of a sales tax, or they would continue to assess and tax the timber as the annual property tax bill. Some states do a combination of many of those. New Hampshire taxes your timber once, 10% of the assessed value when it's harvested. So in theory, you should always have income to help offset the timber tax on the back end.
Okay, great. Rick Evans, timber appraiser with the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.